All right, friends, let us take a closer look at this situation on page 505. So again, we're going to be talking a little bit more about writing a whole number as a fraction. We're going to talk about Casey and the boards. Here we go. Casey uses two boards of the same size to build a birdhouse. Two boards of the same size to build a birdhouse. He cuts each board into fourths. How can you write the number 2 as a fraction to find how many fourths Casey cuts the boards into? This is a lot of information, friends. We're going to go back and do a second read, and this time we're going to do a close read and we're going to mark it up. All right, so Casey uses two boards, same size. He cuts each board into fourths. How can you write the number 2 as a fraction? Number 2 as a fraction. That is my goal. I have two boards that are the same size that are cut into fourths. I need to write the number 2 that represents these two boards as a fraction. There are a number of ways that we can approach this, friends. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to draw our boards. We need to draw our boards, two boards with the same size. Here's board number 1, board number 2. That's the first step. You need to make two holes the same size. And then you need to take your boards or your holes and you need to fraction each of them into 4 pieces or fourths. Why? Because that is what Casey does. Each board is cut into fourths. So we take board number 1, we cut that into fourths. We take board number 2 and we cut that into fourths. I'm going to give you a moment to do that. Again, friends, please make sure you are taking good notes here. That is step number 1. Again, board number 1, board number 2. And then what we need to do is we need to label all these parts. We need to label these parts. So let's do that. Let's label those parts. We know that each section here is 1/4. 4, of course, being that denominator, telling us how many pieces are in the whole. So this is a 4th. 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 And yep, this is a 4th. So please make sure you label each section appropriately. All right, that's the next step. So then the question is, how do we write the number 2 as a fraction? Well, let's review. The number 2 is being represented as 2 wholes. This is 1, this is 2. Each whole is split up into 4 pieces or fourths. So whole number 1, there we go. Whole number 2, there we go. Now we need to write this number 2 as a fraction, and there is a way to do it. What we need to do is we need to add up the number of parts that make up these two wholes. So what can we do? We can simply forward count by 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. What is this telling us? We have 8 fourths. We have 8 fourths. We know that 4 fourths makes 1. 8 fourths makes 2. If it is easier for you to visualize, you could also do this. For now, friends, I want you to just let that denominator rest. We're not ignoring it. We're giving it a break. So you could do this, right? And what I want you to do right now is to just look at all the ones. Look at all the ones. You need to write 2 as a fraction. So we need to know how many parts we've got here, first of all, right? You could just take 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, right? We're adding all those. Adding them together, that, my friends, is 8 parts. Does the denominator change? No, it does not, because we're not changing how many parts in a whole. But we're just simply adding up the parts in each whole. We have 4 here and 4 here, and that equals 8 fourths. So if it does, again, if it helps your brain, just give that denominator a rest for a moment. Add up those numerators, right? Add up those unit fractions. And there you go. He cuts the board into 8 fourths. He cuts the board into 8 fourths. And what we're also going to do, as we have all through this unit, we're also going to be looking at this same problem through the lens of a number line. A number line. Let's take a look. So what you need to do is first draw your number line. You need to draw a number line. And again, if you want to use your ruler to draw a nice straight line, you can do that. Here's your number line, but I would like you to look at the difference between past number lines and this one. Before, we were working with one whole, right? This is where our number lines have ended in the past. Starts at 0, ends at 1. Right? What is the difference now? Well, now we have more than 1, friends. Now we have 2. Now we have 2 wholes that we're working with. Could it be 3? Could it be 5? Could it be 10? Of course it could. But right now, 2. Just 2. And you can see how I've numbered my number line down here at the bottom. Again, starts at 0, ends at 2. Halfway mark is 1. So here's a whole, or here's the respective area model, and here's a whole, and here's the respective area model. And each whole, you will see, is cut into fourths on the number line. You can see that each tick mark is labeled by fourths. So here's a 4th here, and here's a 4th, and here's a 4th, and here's a 4th. But let's keep going. Here's a 4th, here's a 4th, here's a 4th, and here's a 4th. Notice here where we end at the number 2. that 8/4 is also the value of 2. So again, he cuts the board into 8/4. I'm going to give you just a moment to make sure you have all of that written down. All right, friends, now what I would like to show you are, again, my fraction tiles. I want to give you another way to look at and conceptualize what we just did with these area models and this number line. So let us take another look at my fraction tiles. And this is something that I would like you to consider. So if I take my whole, and again, all of these unit fractions represent a whole, right? 12/12, 10/10, 8/8, 6/6, 5/5, 4/4, 3/3, and 2/2 all have the same value of 1 whole. But again, what if we have more than 1? So let me take out my whole. Here's my whole. So if we were to look at the halves, for example, we could clearly see that 2/2 equals 1, right? But what if we had more than 1? We could do this and we could say, oh, okay, 4/2 is 2 and 6/2 is 3 and 8/2 is 4. We could do the same thing with thirds, for example. We could say 1, 2, 3/3 equals 1. And then we could add 3 more on, and that would be 2. And we could add 3 more on, and that would be 3. We could do it with fourths. 4 of these is a whole. 8 of these is 2 wholes. We could do it with fifths. 5 of these is a whole. 10 of these is 2 wholes, and 6, and so on, friends. Does everyone see where we're headed with that? We are making fractions, wholes, and whole numbers fractions. Okay, let's keep going. Please turn now to page 506. It looks like this has a little birdhouse on it. We're going to go back to Casey's birdhouse. And they're going to give you, again, some ways to picture it, as we've done in the past. So it is talking about Casey using the boards. Boards are the same size. Boards are in fourths, writing 2 as a fraction. So again, as you can see, 4/4, and that's 1 whole, and another 4/4, and that's 2 wholes. Each part is a fourth. There are 8/4 in all. There are 8/4 in all. Okay, here's 1, here's 2. Again, you can model it on a number line. The number line shows whole numbers on the top, fourths on the bottom. Just as we did on the prior page, starts at 0. Here is 1, and here is 2. Again, dealing with more than 1 whole. Each board cut into fourths. Here's board number 1, and here is board number 2. Okay, friends, we're going to come back together here for just a moment.